Hi, this is Robert Kiyosaki, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. This is the most important thing you can listen to today.
He's the one.
I have a dream.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I could do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Cinderella's story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Capital Hacking begins in 3, 2, 1.
Drum roll, please. Josh McCown here. Welcome back to Capital Hacking. John Edwin, how much did you love getting to know Jay Scott?
You know, it was the first time I was able to meet him. He's friends with a lot of friends of mine, including you, Josh. So I don't know how our paths hadn't crossed in the past, but he absolutely crushed this interview. It was awesome. There's so much information, guys.
Yeah, there is. There is. We did professor moments where we went to the professor corner and he taught us all about interest rates. Scandal alert. He's anti-reducing the rates. You got to hear this. It's going to blow your mind. And then 2, we talked all about the bubble that was new multifamily and now his angle on what the future of multifamily is. I thought that was great. But as you and I promised, this show is brought to you and sponsored by his lovely wife at Smooch Cookies. I'm just kidding with you. Powered by. Yeah. What's that sponsored by? She didn't have to pay. We just eat her cookies and we are powered up.
Let's go.
All right. We're ready.
Jay Scott, it is such an honor to have you on Capital Hacking. I believe you've been on before, but that was before I was a co-host. And I know a lot about you, but for some of our listeners that don't know who you are, can you give us a little background on who you are?
Yeah. So I am a former engineer and business guy, spent much of my career in Silicon Valley and doing the tech thing. 2008, my wife and I decided to get married. We were old. We were in our 30s, wanted to have kids, but the tech just wasn't conducive to what we wanted to do. We were working 80 hours a week. She was traveling 3.5 weeks a month. I was traveling a couple weeks a month. So it just wasn't going to work. So we decided, let's quit our jobs. Let's figure out something else that was more conducive to the work-life balance we wanted, the ability to raise a family and kind of focus on family. And so 2008, we moved from California back to the East Coast. We fell into real estate, flipping some houses. Over the next 10 years, we flipped about 500 houses. And then in 2018, I decided to transition into multifamily syndication. And so for the last 6 or 7 years, I've been partnered up with my amazing partner, Ashley Wilson at Bar Down Investments. And we've been doing multifamily syndication. We own about 1,200 units around the country right now.
Dang, drop the mic. Now, I'll add a couple more. You know, Jay, if I could jump in here. Jay is author of 5 famous books, which chronicle the house flipping, the construction, management, and there's 3 others. I'm not naming them all, but what other one, what's your most recent of 5?
Yes, most recent book is a book called Real Estate by the Numbers. My favorite, actually. So I'm a big numbers guy. I'm very analytical, and I talk all about how important it is to really know the numbers for your deal, know how to analyze deals. And so I wrote a book with Dave Meyer, who's the VP of Analytics at BiggerPockets, called Real Estate by the Numbers, and it basically talks about all the numbers and formulas and math and important stuff that you need to know when it comes to investing real estate or otherwise.
Hey guys, it's John Vroman, founder of Front Row Dads, and you're listening to Capital Hacking, the best investment you'll make today.
Yeah. So Jay, go ahead. Sorry, I'll let John go because I have a different question.
Yeah, no, I know, and you're chomping at the bit. I love it. But Jay, you know, with 500 flips in 10 years, I mean, that's good volume. Where were you concentrating to do those flips? Was it one location or multiple locations?
So it started out, let's be clear. When I started, I knew nothing about real estate. It's part of the reason why I was able to do 500 flips in 10 years, because I wasn't smart enough to realize that I couldn't do it.
You shouldn't be
also because I knew absolutely nothing about real estate. Knew nothing about construction. I had an electrical engineering degree, but I could barely change a light bulb. Because of those things, I couldn't rely on myself to actually do anything important in the business. I had to focus on hiring. My wife and I had to focus on hiring a great team around us because, again, we didn't have the knowledge or the experience in real estate to do it ourselves. And so when you kind of take yourself out of the equation and you realize your job is just to build a good team, put together some great systems and processes, and then trust the other people who really know what they're doing to do what they're great at, it's a lot easier to scale. And so when we started, again, we didn't know much, but we said, let's just start in our backyard. And again, we didn't know what we didn't know. And if we had been smarter, we probably wouldn't have started, because this was August 2008 and we were in Atlanta, Georgia. And so this was kind of like the worst part of the 2008 recession in one of the hardest hit cities in the country. And so there were foreclosures, everywhere. And so what we realized was finding deals was really simple. Literally we could print out like all the REO properties, all the bank-owned properties, throw a dart, and whatever it hit, we could probably negotiate a great price on. The problem was the selling part. And for several years, nobody realizes it now. Everybody thinks the selling part's easy. You have to, if you can find a great deal, you just renovate it, you put it back on the market, it'll sell. But back then it was literally like you'd go through 3 or 4 buyers because their loans would fall through. They couldn't get approved for credit or for a mortgage, or they'd lose their job in the middle of the closing. And so then they couldn't close on the house. And so selling the houses were really tough. And so we got really good at the sales and the marketing and the kind of the back end pieces. And again, all the stuff that's easy today, but was really tough back then. And so luckily we put together a great team. My wife's great at marketing, and we found a lot of deals right in our backyard for the first 4 or 5 or 6 years. Then we started to move out to other parts of the country. We partnered with somebody who was on the West Coast. And so we ended up partnering in the middle up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, did about 50 flips up there, bought a bunch of stuff in Maryland, North Carolina, just some other places, because we were just looking to expand as the market got a little bit tougher around 2013, 14, 15.
There's a lot to ask there, right, John? Do you have any more follow-ups?
No, because you're chopping it. I was curious. That was a great explanation.
So, folks, for you who are watching and or listening on the car ride, this is the challenge of not being in the same room. We're trying to read each other's body language. But hey, John, you're right to ask that question. Who the hell can do 500 flips? Jay, you're revolutionary to talk about not being able to do the painting and the nailing of wood to walls was your greatest strength. Now, I have also seen that go badly for people. So I've seen the people that listen to the Jay Scotts who has an engineer mind and an analytical mind, but they might not have that mind. And all they take away from the Jay Scott is he hired teams and they did it all. And then they're like, I'm just going to hire teams. And what that does is accelerate financial collapse quicker. You know what I mean? So I've seen both ways. I've seen the person who can paint and does it, grinds it out, makes a living. We were with one of those guys last night, right? Justin, right, John? Grinds it out himself, makes a living, he wins. Jay Scott doesn't pick up the hammer, grinds it out, makes a win. It's the middle. Be careful.
And let me point out, that's a really, really good point. There's kind of two sides to any business when you grow a business. There's kind of the sales and marketing. There's being able to get the customers, generate the business, be able to bring in the income. And then there's the building the business model, the systems and processes, understanding the financial statements, understanding for real estate or even any other business, the underwriting piece, the numbers. And so most people can't do both of those things. And it's why in a lot of businesses, you see partnerships. And a good partnership generally has both of those pieces. It has somebody that's really good sales, marketing, and being able to bring in the customers, the other person who can really figure out how to structure the business and scale the business and put in place the systems and processes. I was very fortunate that my wife is amazing on the sales and marketing side. I can't do that stuff. She can't do the systems and processes and numbers and business model and financial statements, but I'm really good at that piece. So what I would say to anybody, if you fall on that side of the business where maybe you're the contractor person or the sales person or the marketing person, but you don't feel like you know how to grow or structure a business, go find somebody that is really good at that side of the business, somebody hopefully that you know, that you trust, that you have a relationship with, and ask them, hey, come help me or come partner with me or whatever that structure is, where you can get somebody to help you do that thing. Because as you said, Josh, it is really important. And we see a lot, especially anybody that works in the trades or anybody that works in real estate that works with trades. We often see people who are really good at that thing that they sell. They're really good at carpentry. They're really good at painting. They're really good at putting on a roof, but they don't answer phone calls, or they don't get back to you, or they like have to ask for more money because they're not good at cash flow management and budgeting, or they realize they didn't charge enough, like all the stuff that really is essential in a business. And that's the kind of the prototypical business where people are really bad at the business. It's the construction and trades. And so we as real estate investors, we need to be good at that.
Yep. Yeah, Jay. And then that brings me to the trajectory. During those 500 flips, is there something for us capital hacking listeners that you could teach us about how you capitalized 500 flips? What was your genius there? How did you do that?
I had no idea what I was doing when I started. Again, the first flip, you paid with our own cash. Second flip, we realized, hey, this isn't going to be scalable. We can't do everything with our own cash. Let's figure out something else. So we went out and we got just a regular, it was an investment loan, the type of loan you would get for a rental property. And we learned a whole lot through that process. What we learned is that banks don't like to finance, regular banks, big banks don't like to finance deals if there's even the slightest thing wrong, if there's no oven in the place, if the hot water heater doesn't work, if there's broken windows. And so they don't like to finance flips. And so that was a really tough deal to get done, but we learned a lot. Then we went to a small bank that kind of makes its own rules, what's called a portfolio lender. And that worked out really well. They were willing to do a bunch of deals for us. They were willing to work on those properties, finance those properties that big banks wouldn't finance. So we worked with a small bank for a while. Then we found hard money lenders. So basically private lenders in the area that lent their own money, or they raised money to lend at relatively high rates. But again, they made their own rules. They were easy to work with. And then finally, around 2010, I got a phone call from a guy who said, hey, I found you on BiggerPockets. I want to start flipping houses. I've got a lot of cash. I don't want to be one of those people that takes you to lunch and wants to pick your brain and not give you anything in return. So I'll make you a deal. If you basically help me learn how to flip houses, I'll lend you the money so that you can do higher volume. And I said, let's do it. That's great. And so he came in, he was local to me. So we started flipping houses together. Basically, he put in all the capital. I did most of the work. And what I realized was this is really scalable because we can set any terms we want. We can do debt. We can do equity. He can be a partner. He can be a lender. We can say we want a 3-month loan or a 3-year loan, whatever we both agree to. And so that kind of started me down this idea of private money, borrowing money from friends, family, and other people in the business. And after that, things just took off because I was able to meet lots of people that were looking to get into real estate, but didn't actually want to be directly involved in the active part of real estate. They just wanted to put the money in and share in the profits. And so private money is what really allowed us to scale up quickly and do most of those flips.
Yeah.
And where did you come up with the idea and the goal to, because you've written 5 books. So what kind of gave you the drive to do that?
It's a funny story. I started a blog back in 2008 before I started flipping houses. And I just wanted to keep myself accountable. I just wanted to kind of track my journey. And I also felt like, hey, if I figure out how to do this, maybe I can teach other people how to do it. And so I started this blog called 123 Flip. And every day I'd go on and I'd put videos or pictures or an article about like what was going on that day. Hey, I looked at 10 houses. We made an offer on this house. Hey, we just started construction on this house. Here's some pictures of us tearing down walls, whatever it was. And one of the things we did differently than all of the other blogs or TV shows or anything back then was we were tracking each of the deals to the penny. So people could see exactly what we're spending, not just like what our big profit number was. We bought for 100,000, we sold for 200. We didn't make 100. Obviously, you have to take into account all the closing costs on the front end, the back end, the marketing costs. You have to take into account the loan costs and the holding costs and all those things. And so we basically put all the numbers out there. And the blog got really popular after a couple of years because people loved the fact that they could see to the penny the numbers for these deals. And so I started to get ridiculous amounts of emails basically saying, hey, will you teach me the business? Hey, will you answer these questions? Hey, can I pick your brain? Whatever it is. And I'm an introvert. I don't like going to lunch with people. I don't like going to coffee with people who I don't know, with strangers. And so my wife said, look, you've got a lot of great content out there. Just go write a book. And that way, when people come and say, hey, can you help me? You say, yeah, go buy my book. And it wasn't to make money. It was literally just to have people stop asking me to go to lunch with them. So I wrote this book, and ultimately it was about how to flip houses. And one of the chapters in the book was really long. It was like 200 pages. And that was the chapter on how to estimate the renovation costs. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to take that out and make it a second book. So we had the book on flipping houses, the book on estimating rehab costs. I was ready to launch them in 2013. And I was good friends with a guy named Josh Dorkin, who was the guy that started BiggerPockets. BiggerPockets was just starting to get big. And I went to Josh and I said, I've got these 2 books and I'd love to get them out there because most of the people that are reaching out to me and asking me questions are people on your platform. Do you want to like kind of co-publish these books with me? And he said, sure, let's publish the books. BiggerPockets launched the 2 books in 2013, and that ended up being the basis for BiggerPockets Publishing, which has turned into an 8-9 figure business at this point. They've published many dozens of books. They're probably the premier real estate investment publisher on the planet. But basically just going to Josh and saying, hey, you want to market these for me? That launched those 2 books, which did really well. I enjoy writing. So over the next 10 years, I did another 3.
Hi, this is Melanie McCallan. Josh and I are just so grateful for the many investors who have already joined us at Accountable Equity. Accountable Equity is so much more than a capital group. It's really a community of accredited investors that want to learn and grow together. I just want to personally invite you, if you want to find out more about this type of investment and see if it's right for you and your family, please visit us at accountableequity.com.
Hey, it's Hal Elrod, author of The Miracle Morning, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. Enjoy.
Yeah. And I just, to put a little emphasis on that, what I hear in that story is you chronicled your own journey, and blog at that time, that was the time of blogs, wasn't it? The late single digits of 2000. You heard that word all the time, and we made jokes about it back then, blog. And then, of course, so Facebook took off, and that became like microblogging later. Where did the Josh Dorkin start? Did he find your posts, or did you find his site and start contributing? Because my memory was that you were a major contributor on his platform. So which one came first, chicken or egg?
Yeah, I was a major contributor, but because the platform helped me so much. I found BiggerPockets before I ever flipped a house.
Really?
I found BiggerPockets. I joined about 6 months, early 2008, about 6 months before I flipped my first house. And I was just trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I do this? Where do I start? Because there were no good resources back then. And so I asked lots of questions. And then again, along with the blog, as I started figuring out how to do this, I started answering questions. I like helping people. And so I answered more and more and more and more questions. And before I knew it, BiggerPockets was still relatively small. But before I knew it, I was kind of like the top poster on the site.
Yep.
Josh was still working literally out of his basement as a single entrepreneur. He'd been going on 8, 9, 10 years at this point.
Oh, really? It was that old already.
He started in 2004.
I didn't know that.
And so he didn't hire his first employee until 2013, 2014. So
Wow.
He did 9 or 10 years without any employees. He and I we became friends from the platform, and we used to chat all the time. And he didn't have a real CTO, but I knew the technology side of things. So every day we just spend some time, I'd give him advice on the site. He'd give me advice on real estate. And we just kind of became friends.
What a great.
Yeah.
You guys are still close, I imagine, right? I mean,
I talked to him 2 hours ago.
All right. Well, tell him we said hello. We love that guy. I've always credited him with, I think I was just getting into doing private investing ourselves in 2018 after doing it for family offices. And I credit him with a lot of inspiration for us too. So I didn't realize he had been plugging away for that many years before. Yeah. But yeah, I think great journey there. Now let's fast forward. You, without a doubt, people should be buying these books. I've met a lot of people over the years that when I've been with you at conferences will come up to you and say, look, this was the blueprint we used to flip houses. Now, John, you've done 50 plus houses yourself. These would have
500 that is awesome to have a team and, and the financing. And that's interesting, Josh, because I was going to ask Jay about the financing, because to get to that level, you need to have some good backing. But if I could pivot us a little bit and go with something that Jay recently posted on why rates shouldn't be cut. Let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a saucy title. What does it say? What's the actual title on LinkedIn? It's on LinkedIn. It's an article on Jay Scott. By the way, if you're listening and driving, feel free to pull over, or if Tesla's driving for you, just don't worry about it. Type in letter J Scott, not J-A-Y, but just the letter J, and get to his LinkedIn page. Wait till you see some of these radical
4 reasons not to cut.
Okay, tell us about that.
Okay, well, I wrote that
We're talking about the Fed's rate, right? We're talking about the Fed funds rate.
Yeah, 4 reasons why the Fed shouldn't necessarily cut rates. So the first reason, and probably the biggest reason, is that one of the things that we're concerned about in the economy these days is inflation. Depending on who you talk to, some people will tell you there's not a lot of inflation, but a lot of us, if we're going to the grocery store, we're going out shopping, we realize things are more expensive than they were a year ago. Over the last couple years, we all remember 2022 when inflation was absolutely out of control. We're not that bad at this point, but we're still seeing some inflation. One of the things that drives inflation is low interest rates. People have access to cheap credit. When people have access to cheap credit cards, cheap mortgages, cheap car loans, cheap everything, they spend a lot of money. And when people are spending a lot of money, that makes businesses have to expand. They have to hire more people. They have to buy more inventory. They have to build more warehouses, all these things. And they pass those costs on to the consumers. And so low interest rates typically lead to big spending, which leads to businesses raising their prices, which is inflation. And so the Fed cutting rates right now, when we're already experiencing inflation, could lead us down that path where we were a couple of years ago back in 2022 when we saw kind of runaway inflation. And so that's kind of the first big risk. The other thing is that with cheap debt, people oftentimes will figure out ways of using that cheap debt, low interest rates, to generate more cash. So they can use it to get a HELOC on their house or to refinance their house and take cash out. And what do wealthy people do when they have access to a lot of cash? They put it into assets.
Yeah.
They buy crypto, they buy the stock market, they buy gold, whatever it is. We're already in a major asset bubble for most assets. Stock market, price earnings ratio is ridiculous. Gold has come down the last few days, but got over $4,000, which was just absolutely crazy. Crypto over $120,000 for Bitcoin. So we're already in kind of an asset bubble, and the Fed lowering rates runs the risk of kind of fueling that bubble. Other thing is lowering rates is really good for keeping us out of recession. I mentioned earlier that when we have cheap credit, what do people do? They spend money. And spending money is what keeps the country out of a recession. Now, we might think that's a good thing. And in general, it is good. You don't want to be in a recession. But at the same time, it's been about 17 years since we had the last real recession in this country. Historically, we have recessions every 5 years. Going back 160 years, we've had 36 recessions. That's a recession every 4.5 to 5 years. It's been 17 years. What happens when you don't have a recession for a long time? A lot of debt builds up. People build up their credit card debt. Businesses build up their debt. Everybody builds up all this debt. The reason why recessions are good to some extent is that recessions allow all this debt to go away. People go into bankruptcy. People get foreclosed on. Businesses go into bankruptcy. It's not fun, but it kind of gets rid of all that debt that's been accumulating for years past. Well, we now have 17 years of debt that's accumulated. We have $18 trillion in consumer debt right now. Business debt is even higher. There's a lot of debt out there that is really starting to become really cumbersome for people and businesses. And the Fed lowering rates is basically just pushing out that next recession, which means we're going to build up even more debt, and the next recession is going to be even worse. And so I feel like we really need to just kind of let the economy go into recession right now, get rid of some of that debt, see some bankruptcy, see some foreclosure, and kind of start over again. And the Fed lowering rates is not allowing us to do that.
Was that 3 or was that 4? Because I
think that was 3. What was the fourth one? There's probably a fourth one in there.
Well, 1 is inflation. 2 is, 3 is recession. And 2 is
asset bubbles.
Yeah.
Fueling asset
right
bubbles. And then here's the fourth one. The fourth one is that we think of monetary policy like the Fed, what they're doing with interest rates and with money printing and all that. Right now, we think of it as kind of being really tight. Like interest rates we think of as being really high and the Fed not printing a lot of money, like they've actually pulled money out of the money supply the last couple of years. And so a lot of people think that interest rates are too high for where things are. But if you look at where we are historically, interest rates are still historically pretty low. We still, again, have a decent, not just a decent, a lot of money that's floating around. Our money supply is ridiculously high. We're printing lots of money. And so this idea that the Fed is kind of overcorrected and raised rates too much, an argument can be made that rates where they are today is kind of where they should be. Now, as a real estate investor, as a consumer, I like low rates. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't want rates to come down. I just think that it's going to be bad long-term if we bring rates down too soon and too quickly.
It's interesting. While you were talking, Jay, I was thinking about the first home that my wife and I bought, and that wasn't as an investment. It was just, we got married at 21, at 22, we wanted to buy our first home. And I do remember the rates were between like 7 and 8%, and that was normal. I think we got it like in the low 7s, and we were like, we got a great rate. And then I think we got spoiled for a long time, and whatever, the 2.7s and 2.8s of the world, 3%. And now, it's at probably 6 something, and people are like, that's crazy. And I'm like, it wasn't crazy back, when I was in my early 20s. It was normal.
Hey everybody, it's Robert Helms, host of the Real Estate Guys radio program. And when you're not listening to our show, make sure you're tuned to Capital Hacking. You're going to dig it.
Yeah, there's this idea of recency bias where people tend to kind of focus on what's happened most recently, and they think that's normal. And because we had interest rates at like 0% and mortgage rates at 2.5%, 3%, just a couple years ago, there are a lot of people who are younger. They don't remember, you're pretty young too. So your 7 or 8% was pretty recent. My first house was 2008 and I paid 6%. Just seemed normal. And if I talk to my parents, their first house was like 17%. And to that, that seems normal. And so the idea of what feels normal to different people really depends on where they are in their life and how long they've been involved in this business.
Yeah. So if you could do a crystal ball, is if you hold the rate, let's say you hold or slowly decline, reduce, where will that money go? Because right now you're saying it's in overinflated equities in the public market and crypto and gold. What brings it back out of those bubbles? Where does it go? When does it move to some other asset? Because it's not, I guess houses are still expensive, but where's it going to go once it lowers?
I think the next logical step, and I don't know if this is going to happen a month from now, a year from now, or 10 years from now, but the next logical step is we hit that recession.
Oh, yeah.
We basically hit that point where we start to see a spike in foreclosures. We start to see it, and we're already starting to see a spike in bankruptcies. We saw more business bankruptcies in the first 6 months of this year than in any year since 2010.
Oh, wow.
Foreclosures are higher than they've been any year since 2020, since the pandemic. We're starting to see some cracks. And the government will likely, just like they did back in 2022 and 2020, and this is not political. This was what Biden did. This is what Trump did in his first term. This is what Obama did after 2008. So this is both sides of the aisle. The government and our leaders don't like recessions, and they will do whatever they can to stay out of it. And generally what they will do is they'll print lots of money. And so what I suspect is the next step is a recession. The government will try and print us out of it. The only question is, will they be successful? Can they print enough money to keep us out of this next recession when, again, so much debt is built up? Or is it finally going to take hold and we're going to see the first real recession since 2008?
Well, thank you for being a professor on the show. We appreciate that. We had a gentleman on a couple weeks ago now, who was a professor for the capital stack. He would explain how you could build a capital stack. And I thought that was very fruitful for us capital hacking audience. Now let's talk a little bit about your business, Jay, because first of all, this show is sponsored by Smooch Cookies.
Smooch Cookies.
I got to show. Take a look at this, folks. It's the #1 gift in box cookies. It's called Smooch Cookies. And this is a business that is owned by Jay's lovely wife, the absolutely fantastic Carol Scott. Smooch Cookies. There it is. Build your own box. Buy them for your company. Holiday season. It doesn't matter. Look at those family. They're smooching more often because they're eating cookies. And this show has been brought to you by Smooch Cookies. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so smooch cookies. But beyond smooch cookies, what other work are you doing these days, Jay?
Yeah, so again, I am partnered with Ashley Wilson at Bar Down Investments. We've been buying, repositioning, syndicating multifamily for about 7 or 8 years now. She's actually been doing it a little bit longer than I have. And we are basically looking at the landscape, the real estate landscape over the last year or two. What we've found is that, one, it's been difficult to find good deals, not surprising to anybody out there that's been looking for deals. It's a tough time to find deals. But what we found is we may be in a really good position right now to be building. What we're seeing is that there's a lot of supply coming online in 2024, 2025, even heading into 2026. Typically in the multifamily space, that pipeline is somewhere between 18 and 30 months. So by the time you start a project, it takes somewhere between 1.5 years and 3 years to bring that project online. We saw a lot of projects started in 2021, 2022, 2023, when interest rates were really low. Even 2023, because people bought the land in 2021 and 2022 when interest rates were low. And so all of those units are starting to come online or have been coming online. But when interest rates started to spike in 2022, developers stopped buying land. So 2023, 2024, 2025, there was actually a whole lot less land built and started to be developed than in previous years. And so that means if you look forward 18 to 30 months, we're going to start to see a whole lot fewer deliverables of multifamily units come 2027 and 2028, which means in 2027 and 2028, assuming we expect to see demand grow, and we're always expecting to see demand grow in real estate, there's probably going to be an undersupply. And so about a year and a half ago, we said, hey, if we can find a decent area to build a place where basically development stopped after 2023, 2024, by the time we get these units online in 2027, 2028, we'll probably have a great opportunity. And so that's what we did. We bought a tract of land in a master plan community just outside of Dallas, Texas. We're in the process of raising for that deal now. We've spent the last year going through the loan process and engineering and architecture and design, getting permits. We're waiting for the loan to be approved through HUD, which should happen in the next couple months, and hope to kick off development in January, build for a couple years, and launch that project or get our CO and actually complete that project in 2028.
Yeah, I love it. So basically the argument is a pipeline bubble happened, but has been implemented or is coming online. If not, most of it's already come online. Yeah. That means the next wave, the next 3-year cycle, there's almost no inventory going to be delivered percentage wise. Therefore, new assets that open up in 28, 29 will be some of the rare options for new product.
Yeah,
I get it.
And when you say master plan community, Jay, do you mean like a town center?
So there are this is in Texas, and there are some big groups especially in Texas. For some reason, this is popular in Texas. There are some big groups that will go into cities that are kind of path of progress. And so, for example, this city that we're building in is about 20 minutes south of Fort Worth, about 40 minutes from the Dallas airport. So it's not downtown Dallas, but it's kind of where the population growth is headed. They'll get ahead of the curve. They'll go in, they'll buy a very large tract of land. They will break it up, entitle it, and then zone a multifamily portion of the land. They'll zone a single family portion of the land. They'll zone some commercial, some retail, some restaurants, some medical centers, some hotels, whatever it is. And so you end up with basically exactly what you said, this big master plan community, mixed use that ends up being a town center or just some place where people go to hang out. We found one of those. We purchased the multifamily tract of land and are building the multifamily piece while other developers are coming in and building the single family and the hotel and the medical center and the retail and everything else.
Yeah, no, super smart, because I've been to Dallas a few times, and it's like, in Philly, a lot of people they love living in Center City, Philly, but in New York too. But Dallas seemed to be a lot of highways and a lot of business happens in downtown, but that's not where the population is.
Yeah. And with things getting so expensive downtown, people are starting to move outside the city. We were very fortunate. We put the land under contract last June. 3 months later, Amazon announced that they were building an operations center literally a half mile from us.
Awesome.
employing 1,100 people, which kind of kicked off this whole big thing in this town. 18 other businesses are coming in to support Amazon and have bought tracts of land. The city has allocated $250 million to build out the core expressway from Dallas to this city, Cleburne. And so we got really lucky with our timing, and it looks like we're in very well positioned for a couple years from now.
Well, Jay, we're excited to have you on the show. We'll welcome you back anytime. Thanks for being a professor today. And as John always says, how can our listeners reach back out to you, Jay?
Yeah, anybody that wants to get in touch, please feel free. It's pretty easy. Go to jscott.com, letter J, SCOTT.com. My email's there, and that'll also link you out to everything I have going on.
We appreciate you.
Awesome.
Can't wait to follow up with you. Thank you,
Appreciate
brother.
you guys.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Damn straight. We just got
buddy.
We got to the end of another great show. And everyone listening right now, you're the family and friends. Thanks for staying till the end.
That was so fun. And hey, hit the like, hit subscribe. We're here to serve you guys. That's why we're doing this show. Josh is not paying me. I'm doing this off of my quote unquote sweat equity because we want to make a difference in your life. And then that ripple effect will continue to touch the world.
Hey, amen, brother. Please check us out on capitalhacking.com, all the social media threads. And yes, I know you've probably already sent this episode to one of your best friends. Thank you. We love you. Just go right into your iPhone, hit the plus symbol. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.
Share.